Okay. Uh, Welcome. The title of today's episode is Directly Contact the Existential System Administrator. And I think it's allergy season, guys. I'm extremely nasally and a little bit jet lagged as well. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I wanted to speak about how throughout this time my perception has reverted to the acceptance of a singularian approach. To explain whose voice you're hearing right now in the context of this episode. Someone who was raised in Iran for some time and then grew up in Canada most of his life. In my youth, religion, I was seeing practical applications of religion, as in I was seeing religious people. For example, my old grandmother, grandfather, their behaviors. I was also born inside a theocracy. So I was aware of religion at a young age, but due to the general approach, I was not, I had not activated it, or I can say that it was not real for me when I was young. So from that religious environment and then coming to Canada, I was naturally pushed towards spirituality, which is some way of trying to hold on to both of them, you know. Both the divine context and all the other possible shapes of it. Up to last year, I could say that spirituality was valid, but there was something happening that was off. So it was as if the inner realms were advancing, but the outer realms weren't. And through what I would say quite the journey, I came into this conclusion that the point of being in this world is not just us, it's not just about us. And a religious dimension opened up for me through just the problems I was having and the type of life I was living. Until there came this moment where I realized there are some problems beyond my control, and the idea that there is a greatness that can help man. My life kind of changed, but this is not me trying to tell people to be religious. This episode is more about me explaining to you, whoever you are in cyberspace, that after journeying, if you know who I am from the previous talks, I want to explain to you how far up this mountain of the mystery of life I've climbed, and that I have found a very interesting metaphor. Upon realizing that I was not living a life where there was no God, or there was God, like that was the multiple choice, I was living in a reality where I was either bound to, there were three options pretty much. I was either worshiping others, things that were outside of me, external to me, or I was worshiping myself. That was the other option. Or the option was to worship that which was beyond anything existing. So something suddenly dawned on me as I began going towards Islam. I am Muslim, by the way. I came into this realization that to live a more pure life, that means to simplify, if I was stuck in a sort of complexity of my egoic, savage effort, pretty much I came into this realization that, okay, this world is a system. And this system has an administrator. Or all systems have an administrator. And out of all the holy books, there is one book that says, do not treat the administrator limited to what's in the system. So one out of various significant ideological systems is saying, hey, oh, you entity inside a system, to identify or associate anything to the system administrator is wrong. This means associating ultimate power to, for example, a moderator rather than the system administrator is an error. Do you know? So what I want to tell people when it comes to how I as a human being, like I'm kind of speaking from a different context than other people. I ran after spirituality. I ran past religion and into spirituality, coming into the realization that anything that happens to the spirit is happening within a space of authorization. So there is, when it comes to intelligence, authorization to do, and then there's authorization to be. Poetically, the higher authorizations are bound to an almighty decree. Pretty much this back to the idea of that there is a system. Now, what do we find in a system? We find an administrator, and then we find moderators. then we in some sense find members. We right now having the discussion, we are in the position of being the members of a system. We're not moderators of it, and we're not the administrator. This is obvious. Even if, let's say, you're someone and, you're part of this, let's say, elite family and you're conquering a part of the world, I mean, it's not, like, even that doesn't mean you're a moderator. Because the moderators are not just limited to physicality. So there's the notion of power in the visible realm, and then there's notion of power beyond this realm. Now, I advise that it's necessary to go search for power in this world. It's more important to understand what is power, right? And keep in mind, if it's a system with an administrator, the dynamics are different. So what I'm telling the listener here, there's so many different cultures, so many different ways to look at the world. Let's for a moment consider it's a system with an administrator. Now, let's say the moderators, they have a creative presence in the realm, right? So, for example, polytheism would be trying to get to truth through the moderator, and in some sense, enlightenment would be directly from the administrator. If it was just a system without an administrator, then of course the responsibility of freedom falls on the individual, therefore there is the concept of enlightenment. But the idea that there is a God is the implication that there is an incredible intelligent presence, that there is a living condition. So, I'll give you an example. For example, like this was maybe like 6 months ago, my mother called and said, use this religious lady, in Iran has a special prayer, and she's saying put I don't know, salt and water or lemon and water, on your head or something like that. It was some idea like this. And I remember telling my mother that since coming towards Islam, I only request help from the Creator. That's the whole point. You're either requesting something from that which is a moderator, or you're going directly to the system administrator. I realized that this whole time, that connection with the system administrator is possible, and at the same time, perhaps it's the proper way to live. Why? Because of the uncontrolled variables of our day. There are things beyond our control, right? So there is a way that one can manage those events that are beyond their control, but it is never them managing it, right? And it's not some deity or entity, guys. This world and the human consciousness is too important to play, let's say, lower life games. Really what it is that there is, I call it the intelligent interaction capability. So human beings, we're in a world where there is an ability to have an intelligent interaction, right, with the original force, with the original power, right? This is the difference between religion and spirituality. Spirituality is not ready to directly engage, right? But religion has only the direct engagement left as an option. There's nothing else. You see, more than it's as if this is truth, this is not truth. It's like, do we want to keep it? Is it really how important is it for a brain to neurochemically convince itself that a specific picture on life is it? right? Like there's way more going on here. And if the idea implies that this whole time we need to have an acknowledgement of the intelligence of reality, what does this mean? This means that if someone says, like to me, what I told my mother was that only from God, nothing else, only from the system administrator. The only thing that's been missing is a conscious living acknowledgement of the system administrator. And there's this thing about the theological context of it goes very far beyond, because there are passages and ideas that parallel the notion that if everybody did good deeds, if everything was perfect, then God would in some sense replace those people with sinners, just to see if do they become conscious to repent, right? The idea of repentance from a human angle is like, yo, I made a mistake. How do I equalize? How do I protect my soul, right? What I'm trying to say is that people are different. And because people are different, my findings feel to me just unique to like the certain way my attention's positioned. But really what I'm saying is that by acknowledging not just the system exists, but that the existence is being monitored, to be in the presence of living greatness, okay? And then living your day is completely different. Do you understand? Think of it this way. It's a bunch of creatures waking up in the day, doing some activity, and then going back to sleep. Now, what's important for us as creatures is the quality of activity. It's not always the case that more is best. You know, culture may subconsciously want us to consider it that way, but it's not the case. And this idea of acknowledging and wanting the forgiveness of the original force. This is very huge. Do you know why? That means this is, I find, the starting point. Life brings you into a situation where you realize that you are not as mighty as you thought, as the ego promised. You realize that you're not an absolute being. You for the first time fearlessly witness your limitation. And once you see where your dead end is, where you can't go any further, then you realize that in either you stay where you are, or you step up. Think of it this way. Your outer life requires moments throughout the day where you're acknowledging and consciously noticing and saying, it's pretty much like this. It's like you wake up in the morning and you're like, okay, I have awakened consciously another day in the presence of the ultimate. That's the difference. In spirituality, you are trying to be the ultimate. In religion, the ultimate is there, but the ultimate is not anything conditional. So there is no longer an ego or obsession, or it ever made sense to want to be an ultimate. You know, Think of it this way. I'm this person who, in these lectures, I spoke about the idea of advanced communication. I literally preached it. I preached the notion of the advancement of communication, advanced communication. Little did I know religion was the most advanced communication. Submission of ego to that which is a singularity beyond is an ultimate act. Once you truly acknowledge what you don't know, you come back into that state where you're like, all right, I don't know anymore. There comes the freedom to see again. I don't know what I can tell you this. It's as if like the freedom to see more than what I was trying to like plant as a seed. So, for example, if a human being, let's say in a time of crisis, calls upon a symbol, right? Think of it this way. If someone calls upon a deity, let's say a polytheist calls upon like some entity that was close to God, right? Or they considered it was God. I'm trying to say is that the idea that you are worshiping that which is beyond existence is a freedom automatically from what was in existence. But if you're worshiping something that's in existence, like inside existence, then I don't know how to say it to you, but you're working with a moderator, and the moderators are left for the system administrator to decide. So I would say the idea is that while you're alive, while you're still, alive here, life perhaps may have had this whole time another way to connect to. And that connection would involve the individual to acknowledge its limited connection and to realize that it is not limitless connection. It is in the presence of a limitless opportunity. So what that means is imagine there's creatures on a planet, and imagine that there was an intelligence, and a mighty, like almighty intelligence in this world and on this planet. So what is expected of creatures on that planet is to interact, to work with that intelligence, right? That intelligence is here. Do you know? God is here. Beyond what the brain conjures as itself. There's one way I find so far to truly go about living in this world, and Sun Tzu in The Art of War pointed to it. Religions have got it right. Do you know? Sun Tzu said, the general that is aligned with the heavens wins. So think of it this way, that there is your body, mind, soul. The body is the soldiers, the mind is the commanding officer, and the soul is the general. To live the day as just a mind and a body is to be a commanding officer that has not been briefed by the soul, by the general. So it's working based on yesterday's command or yesterday's calculation. When I say acknowledge the creator, connect and contact the system administrator, I'm telling you, it's like an action of the soul prior to the mind and body's activation. It's as if the general acknowledges the presence, and let's put God as the emperor. So you wake up in the morning, the general acknowledges the emperor, God, the source of creation, the source that is beyond its source, beyond itself. And to acknowledge an ultimate power and presence and then to go about your day is a different day. That's what's happened, the acknowledgement of the original power. That means it's like, let's say you're someone a little stingy on quality, right? So what kind of quality of power, what sort of quality of world do you want to be in? One that is being administered by the greatness beyond it? Or one where you're always bound to seeing less of it, right? Not to see less, but the idea is that to function throughout the day as a simple service, it's as if like because you've kind of given your hopes, your fears, your doubts, everything, you put away the ego and you're like, okay, let's see the original power. Let's live a day in the presence of the original, of the system administrator. Because the moderators are bound by their shape of their agenda. Some beings are designed to be a specific task. Human beings have an incredible ability to be like, yo man, it's either an empty rock or I am in the presence of the intelligence of the Lord of the worlds. To be honest, that one sentence, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds, I realize, yes, we're not here to get praise as an individual. We are here to realize that individualism is an act of praise to the Creator. You see, the difference is that is the world supremely alive, and then we're waiting to see what happens. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm telling you, connect. And it's as simple as, like it wasn't, for me specifically, with the first moment, it wasn't easy to put down the ego, to have my ego bow, to a superior truth. But I reached a point where I was like, I have no idea how to solve these problems, right? And so what you do is you let go of what you think is right that you have to do, and you just trust. That means as I am giving this lecture, completely in the presence of an ultimate creator, which is another way of saying the world is never alone. Human beings have been lazy with materialism. What is this? This whole time there's an ability to connect to an intelligence, not of shape. You see, if you're worshiping something that has a shape, it's a moderator. If it's something that is beyond shape, that the shape is irrelevant, so then the attachment to the shape is freedom to be that. You know, the idea of God is so necessary for self-worshippers, because I'm telling you, as you worship yourself, you get limited by yourself. But if you worship even something outside of yourself, others, you get limited by others. But if you worship that which is the limitless, you get limited by the limitless, so you become limitless in some sense. What's pretty much happened, the thing that I've discovered lately, has been to, rather than to press on the gas and try to advance the complexities of life, I decided to take my foot off the gas pedal, hand over the burden of the future to the creator of the past. And to decide to be a simple being. And you know how difficult that was, but once it happened, I felt a serenity. I felt a freedom. You know, this is a rare freedom. Some human beings are privileged to experience. You know, it's freedom from yourself. Oh, that freedom is so relaxing. So the point of this episode really was for me to be like, all right, guys, we can all that agree that this is a system. We can all that agree that we're members in the system, and we can say there's potentially moderators, and of course there's an administrator, right? So to be in a system, Mr.Within is pretty much saying, you know, this mask that I'm wearing is pretty much saying, you acknowledge the intelligence that is the whole system comes from the system administrator. You realize that this is something that you have to experience by finding yourself in a moment where there is no other way to experience truth than to let go of any sort of filterization of it. So when the person reaches a moment where they're like, I have no idea what to do, and they're crushed by, they're imprisoned by themselves or by that which is outside of them, that's when the person discovers that there is an ultimate helpful force, you know? What are the options? Contacting aliens, right? And the aliens have some sort of bioorganic shape, right? Or to contact superior technology, which is going to be tech-based, you know, or to contact a living, intelligent, universal creator force. Do you know? for me to contact such a thing seemed to be a rare opportunity of the life. You know what it is? Imagine that the system administrator it's like someone who set up a party, right? We're all guests in this giant existential cosmic house, okay? Everything in existence. And so the guests have arrived, and we're there, and we're noticing that the host isn't there. We can't see the host. It's like this system belongs to its designer. And as ethical beings, privileged with the experience of an existence, must realize that it makes perfect sense to communicate with the system administrator and then to move about in the system. The desire to have, the desire to gain, something that is said very beautiful about God and religion is that the power of faith is equivalent to you. If you were to use your mind, you get a certain result. But if you had faith and you let God bring it, God will bring it in a way that you could have never imagined, better than what you could have imagined. So really, through faith, one is rendered as a simple being. You're a simple being, and people are like, are you not worried? Are you not concerned? Do you not have fear of what comes next? And the person's like, I know that I have sincerely acknowledged the presence of an ultimate decree. That means there is a way that things will happen, that it's not creatures that have been created can dictate alone. There is the aim beyond man's comprehension. Do you know what it means to contact the system administrator? It means getting access to original information. This might be a strange way to categorize energy, but think of it this way, that there is original energy, then there is moderated energy, then there's the energy you have a membership of. You're a member of. Right now, we can't ignore we're all members of an energetic world. There's energy here. But the administration, see, this is what was fascinating. I was like, how do things happen actually? So there has to be an administration principle. Something is administered. Is it just the thing alone that administers it? No. Because there's ways things happen throughout this lifetime that I've seen that definitely suggest the value of phenomena for the future is even being considered. So divine decree knows that which we can never. That means you might look at this world and be like, why are evil people succeeding? Like, that makes no sense. But then from a divine position, you don't know. Those evil people might be succeeding because like an angel will be born, you know, from that family of devils, for example. For me, the burden of having to know the future shifted to realizing that the most advanced communication is a communication with the most advanced position in being. The most advanced position in being is, interestingly, the position of a creator that is beyond being. So the most advanced position in existence is for existence is that which is beyond existence. And we have to realize the reason we're such information hungry entities is because we want to see more than we've seen. So we're inside an existential system. Mr.Within, one human being's telling you to contact the administrator. I'm telling you that to contact that original power is a way of being like, okay, this is the original power I am working with, and to renounce, and this is where it comes to repent, that which is not aligned with that original power. The addition, this lecture most likely should inspire you to consider that the mind and body, if the body is not enough to administer the body, you need the mind. Then to administer the mind perfectly, you need the soul. But when it comes to the soul, because the idea of the soul is beyond the mind and body, one has to have the capacity to realize they are not their mind and body. Why? Because the mind and body are in the game of constantly creating selfhood. You see, it's like in order to survive, we have to be a shape. So that shape can relate to the danger. Directly contacting the system administrator means the creation trusts the creator. And when there is any misdeed, to acknowledge the presence of the creator and to seek forgiveness. It's like showering for the soul. To not just be conscious that something went wrong, but to take it to the Creator. All maintenance issues contact the manufacturers, similarly to contact the administrator. You need help, don't ask people. Ask the system administrator. Ask God, the God beyond existential reference. Thank you for listening. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds.